welcome in the newest edition of Caught Stealing, the Fantasy Alarm Fantasy Baseball podcast. I guess I should reintroduce myself here. Colby Conway here at Fantasy Alarm, over on X at Colby R. Conway. And here, as usual, with me sometimes, me being the sometimes, he's always here, is Matt Selz at the Salesman over on X. First off, Matt, before I ask you how everything is going, quick shout out. Pinch hitter James Grande stepping in for a couple of weeks on a short notice, so certainly appreciate him. I'll send only positive words to him this time. I'll keep the other words to the side because he did step in quite admirably. So shout out James Grande. But Matt Sells, you are here. So how is everything going for you?
Things are good. We're coming down to the home stretch here. We're recording this on Wednesday of this week, Wednesday evening. So we're almost to Labor Day weekend, and then basically 1 month left of the regular season, which is going to be an absolute slugfest to figure out playoff standings. Down the wire, we come for fantasy baseball. All sorts of stuff going on. We got to pay attention to prospects because some of those guys are getting called up. We saw some notable ones get called up this week. A fun time, man. And then, oh yeah, by the way, NFL creeps in on our fun here with baseball next week. So great sports time of year here because we got football and college football and baseball, and then soon enough NBA, NHL. And if you're in my neck of the woods, also Premier League, we follow that here. So we got that going on. A lot of stuff to pay attention to.
We are entering that time of year. It's the sports mecca, as some would
Yes.
say, in that you get baseball during the week, mix in some football in the evenings and the days. It's hard to complain. I know it's always fun those first couple of weeks of the NFL season if you're still fighting for something in fantasy baseball when you're kind of setting the baseball lineups and you're doing your watching your football live streams, you're setting your lineup, and then you're looking. Jackson Holiday is not a starter today. Tyler Stevenson is not a starter today. And it's like wonderful. I got flex decisions I have to make now. My catcher's not playing. My second baseman's not
Yeah,
playing. I
instead of
don't have a
watching
bench
the
bat.
highlights on the Sunday Night Football show, I'm setting waiver wires. I'm setting
That's right.
lineups for the next week. Yeah,
Hey,
all sorts of fun stuff.
wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm battling for the money in my home league when I drafted on 2.5 hours of sleep online when everybody else was in person for an auction over an iPad against a person with all of my notes and targets who was supposed to draft for me, but wound up drafting his own team.
Well, you know what happens, though, if you win.
I don't have to split it. I
No,
drafted
you're
my
doing the
team.
same exact thing next year.
I
Two
mean,
and a
this
half
is the
hours of sleep.
second year in a row I've done this, and I'm battling for the money. So
Nope. 2.5 hours of sleep, and you send the whole league your scouting report and your draft rankings. That's it.
2 years ago, the entire league got my prospect rankings before the draft. One of the when the draft guide was free and my prospect rankings were in there, one of our members in my home league was like, is there another Matt Sells or is this you? I was like, nope, that's me. So he sent the link to everybody of all of my top 400 prospects.
You never post your content until after you do the drafts that matter the most, my friend.
Unfortunately, that's not how it works. You get paid the right.
That's true. That's true. I hear you on that one. You mentioned prospects, and obviously today, as we're recording this, is Wednesday evening. I'm calling it. It was going to be Dylan Cruz Day
It
because he hit his
was.
first major league home run, but then have to take attention elsewhere out in Cincinnati. I saw a day or two ago over on X. It was rumored that Rhett Lowder was going to come up. Then he didn't, and then he did. He's going to start one of the games on Friday, I believe, since he has a doubleheader. So Lowder's going to come up, first round pick from the 2023 draft class, if I remember correctly. And don't really typically love pitchers in Great American Ballpark, but the minor league numbers look good. What's kind of the scouting report on Lowder? And do you think he can stick, or is he just coming up to fill a spot start?
I think he's going to stick. I think the Reds need some help in that rotation. There's already a spot open for him now. Technically, if it's a doubleheader, he could come up as the 27th man, and they wouldn't have to make a move. He would just fill the extra spot for that day. But he's mainly a 3-pitch guy. He's got fairly standard mix of a fastball, slider, changeup. The changeup is arguably his best pitch. Not quite. I don't know if he's quite a frontline starter for me. I would say maybe a number 2. He's certainly not an ace. He could be, a low end SP2 in an MLB rotation. He's probably better suited as a high end number 3 starter with a lot of strikeout upside. look, he's got the standard velocity we're looking for. He's got run. He's kind of got a little bit of a funky delivery that gives him some. He gets a little bit more strikeouts than the stuff probably on its own would get. So, it's kind of one of those. It is the next good pitcher, but he's not to the Chase Burns level. He's not to the Hunter Green level. He's probably more like a Nick Lodolo type for the Reds. A high breakout, mid rotation starter is what I would put him as.
Minus the injuries.
Hopefully,
Hopefully.
minus the injuries. Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully minus the injury. So let's say this. Teams are pushing for fantasy contention. They need some starting pitching help. 8-team league is Lowder an ad.
Yes.
Okay. Well, then if he's an ad in 8, then he's an ad in 10, 12.
I mean, at this point, if you need an arm, go get him.
Yeah.
If
Fair
you're
enough.
dropping an actual starter who may be struggling a little bit, then come ask us in Discord. But if it's like a reliever or a starter you never play, drop him and go pick up Lowder because there's only upside. Right? If you never play the guy, it literally doesn't hurt you. Drop him and pick up somebody you may play.
Fair enough. I think that's the move as well. I missed out on Lowder in a couple of leagues, but we'll see how that plays out for me. Moving to the AL Central, I want to ask you this question, and I'm going to be very particular with my word choice. Can the Royals run away with the AL Central?
I don't know if they're going to run away with it. They
Because
are on.
Can they win it? The answer is yes, but can they run away with it?
In what was it, June, when we did bold predictions midway?
Yeah, I said they get a wild card spot.
No, you said in an earlier podcast that they would win. That you would bet them to win the AL Central.
Oh, yeah. Before the year, I mentioned it. Yes.
It might have been before the year. Yes. That you had.
Then I hedged my bet a couple weeks ago, and I said I think the Royals are going to get a wild card spot.
Yeah,
hedged my bet.
There you go. But they are. I was looking at the odds to win the division earlier today, actually, and I think the Guardians were going off at like plus 135, and the Royals are at plus 150, and the Twins are at plus 300. I think it was on DK that I saw that.
Mm.
I don't know about elsewhere. I was quite frankly looking to see if they had Juan Soto free agent odds.
Fair enough. At least you're honest.
But I did stumble across that. I do think that the Royals have a shot. Does everybody have to play as well as they possibly can down the stretch for that to happen? Yes. I think Cleveland is deeper and has pieces that are more equipped for it than the Royals do. But they've got a shot. Look, I think at this point it's reasonably safe to say that they are winding up in the playoffs. Which is remarkable since I'm pretty sure they lost 100 games last year. So, but hey, the last year's World Series had two teams that had lost 100 games 2 years prior and made the World Series against each other. So there's that.
That is true. And as I'm looking at it over here in 2023, Royals did in fact lose 106 games, 97 the year before. So I like them as I keep going back and forth. I think I like them to win the division. I'm back on that train now. I went from winning the division to wild card back to winning the division.
I think they have that like 2015 mojo about them where like they just, if you make a mistake, they make you pay. And the pitching is just really good right now. Like really good.
And the deadline that they had, we liked it when it happened.
Yes.
Like it was like, listen, they did not get the biggest name players, but we had talked about I forget his last name. Lucas E is what I call him because I can never remember his last name. But I had said that he's going to get saves coming out there. He's going to solidify the bullpen. And Michael Lorenzen has done fine in the rotation. Like they've done well. And then you have other teams like Baltimore who trade away two notable prospects for a pitcher that they send to the minors after a handful of starts. So like winning the deadline matters. And the Royals are showing that it's that it is important. And, we'll talk about a particular guy in that deal for Trevor Rogers. But how bad was that?
They have a shot. They have a shot to make the World Series, given that they did sign Will Smith in the
Mm,
offseason, who's made, I think, 4 straight World Series now with 4 different teams.
mm.
So I know he's injured, but he's still on the roster. Um,
How
yeah,
bad is that Trevor Rogers deal, though? Like, it was bad when it happened, and it hasn't gotten any better.
it hasn't. They look. I think it's going to take some time for Baltimore to get the most out of him. I think they
Mm.
like his pitch mix. I think they're adjusting some stuff. Um, it hasn't gone well, clearly. People who thought it was an overpay to give up Connor Norby. Okay, we'll see, but it's not like Baltimore's hurting for bats. Again, I will make this claim. They traded from a position of strength to take a shot, and if it worked out, it worked out. It didn't, so it happens. Um, but they have Trevor Rogers for a few more years, and if they can get the pitch mix right, if they can, kind of help the pitch shape a little bit, I think there's some stuff to work with Trevor Rogers.
It's going to suck for 2024, but Baltimore has enough that I think they'll be. I don't know if this will quite be
I don't think they win the division. I think the Yankees
sure.
take the division.
While this might be a bad deal in the moment, I don't know if this turns out to be as bad as the infamous Pittsburgh Pirates and Chris Archer deal. I don't
Is
know if
that
it
worse or
quite
is
gets to
Soto
that.
worse?
Oh, yeah, because the Soto deal is going to linger for
For a
potentially like
while.
another decade.
And here's the thing:
Yeah,
if the Nats re-sign Soto, then it's really bad.
yeah. Oh,
It's really bad. If you give them 6 players and get the guy back, it's not. It's not just like the Yankees Aroldis Chapman situation, right? Where they traded Aroldis Chapman to the Cubs in 2016, and they got um Glaber.
I believe so. That seems right.
Yeah, they got the top bat from the Cubs at the time. I'm pretty sure it was Glaber. Um, and then 2.5 months later, re-signed Chapman because he was a rental and he wasn't going to re-sign with the Cubs. It's not that bad because that was a 1-for-1 thing for a rental.
Yeah.
The Padres gave up 6 dudes
Hmm.
for one guy. Well, technically 2 because there was also Josh Bell at the time. And then traded him, got a little bit back, but yeah, I don't know. Those 2 are right up there. Or Fernando Tatis for James Shields. That's
Yeah.
pretty bad too.
Yeah. That one's pretty bad. Yeah. Regardless, end of the story. I love what the Royals did at the deadline. It's validating everything. Good for them. I hope they run away with the division. And Bobby Witt wins MVP. Although I don't know if he will, but I want
I
him to.
don't think. I mean, let's put it this way. I was looking at this earlier too. Aaron Judge is minus 3,000 on DK to win AL MVP. Bobby Witt is second at plus 1,100.
Okay.
In the NL, it's not that bad. Shohei is at minus 1,400 and Francisco Lindor is at plus 550.
That's
Judge is minus 3,000.
that's insane. I mean, he's
You
having a hell
gotta
of a year.
bet $300 to win $100 back.
That's no, be about 3,000.
No, you bet 3,000 to win $100 back.
Yep. That is good for him.
And then
Well,
Soto's like plus 5,000.
it's a little better. It won't happen, but
But Bobby Witt, who's having a ridiculous year, is plus 1,100 and is second behind Judge.
imagine a guy hitting 346, OPS over 1,000, 27 stolen bases, 28 home runs, and is about a handful of RBIs away from 100 to be 100 runs, 100 RBIs to be the distant
Yeah.
second.
By the way, they said something on the Nats broadcast about Judge the other day. They said on balls in play, his slugging percentage on balls in play this year is over 1,200. His slugging percentage, not the OPS.
That's wild.
It's ridiculous.
Imagine having an OPS of Bobby Witt's 1,017. Imagine being nearly 200 points behind the guy ahead of you.
Yeah. And Judge started slowly.
Yeah.
He had a bad April.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Looking this up quick. Yeah, he
By
was
the way, if
he,
you want
he
to
opened
note,
the year 2 for 16 or 24 for 116. He had 6 home runs through his first 116 bats. Since then in May, 14 home runs, 11 in June, 8 in July, 12 in August.
yeah. And by the way, he's robbed like 9.
Oh, that adds to his total then if it gets close to the record. We just add those in and we call it a day.
Yeah, he stole 2 from the Nats the other day by
Yeah.
himself.
Well, at this time of year, I know last week you and James had talked about the September prospects that we might need to call up or that it might get called up that we should stash for our fantasy baseball rosters. Today, I'm going to have to I come back and of course we leave all the positivity out of it. I come in and bring negativity and pessimism because we're now
In
going to talk about,
fairness, Grande suggested this segment, so we're
okay.
hanging on him.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, the nice stuff with Grande's gone. It's now we're back to this. It's of course you want to talk about this, but there are pitchers who throw innings in Major League Baseball. Many of them are getting close to and or have already surpassed previous highs. And as we have seen with the likes of Garrett Crochet already, teams are going to implement innings limits to try to preserve some of these young arms. So we got a bunch of different names. This is not the full list. It's just a couple that we kind of pointed out that we think are worth talking about. So let's kind of start here, keep it relatively short with some of these guys. But in Pittsburgh, your 2025 World Series champions, they do have Paul Skeens and Jared Jones. Jones already missed amount of time with his arm injury. Skeens is just a young talent that they're probably going to try to preserve. How do you think Pittsburgh handles them here the rest of the way?
I think they slow play it. I think
You too.
they're 2 extra call ups that they get in September because now it's 28-man rosters instead of 40. I think most of the time it'll be for an arm. They'll call them up either spot start or, maybe if it's a 2-start week for that spot, then they'll just bring them in to eat. Because let's face it, they're not really in the playoff picture at this point. They're in
Says
a
you.
tightly contested NL. I mean, they've kind of fallen off the back of the pack here a little
But
bit.
have they been mathematically eliminated?
They have not.
Then they're still in it.
They have not. But
That's where I'm hanging my hat right now. They're not
they are
mathematically
clearly
eliminated.
gearing up for the start of their window,
Next
right?
year's World Series run, yeah.
With those 2 at the front of your rotation and some more depth pieces coming and a fairly solid young lineup being built,
Mhm.
there's no reason to push these guys. They have already stated that Paul Skeens is going to be slow played in September. Jared Jones, I don't see any reason to push him. He's already coming back from injury.
Yep.
Um, it's possible. I don't think they pair the 2 of them together and use one as an opener and one as the bulk guy because it makes no sense. But I would imagine that they would go with a 6-man rotation the rest of the way and just spot start from here on out.
I think so. Do you think Chicago does anything different with Garrett Crochet than kind of what they're doing? Restrict them to 4-ish innings a
I
start, and
think
that's
they've
pretty
already
much what they
played
do.
their hand.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the man's not getting any more wins on that team even if he pitches 5 innings. So
Yeah.
I did see today the 9 relievers they started the year with. None of them are on the roster anymore.
Is Crochet still worth rostering?
I mean, if you want strikeouts, I guess, but
Because other than that, last 7 starts, 6.75 ERA and a whip of just under 1.7.
yeah, he's definitely started to slow down. We're seeing this a lot with some of these young guys like Mackenzie Gore has kind of fallen off
Yep.
the last 6 starts or so. Taj Bradley, the same thing. Garrett Crochet. If you want to drop him and just spot start people in his place, that's fine. Because I mean, if you're in a keeper or dynasty, you're not dropping Garrett Crochet.
Right.
If you're
Yeah.
in a redraft, this is specifically redraft.
Yes.
I think you can drop Crochet at this point.
Yep. All this is related. All this strictly redraft. That's what we're going to focus on here. And so another one here, we go over to San Diego. I'm looking here. So Michael King is up to 146 and a third innings on this young season here. And when you look at past years, last year he logged 104 innings with the Yankees, no minor league innings. So he's already up to just about a 42 inning jump. And we can see now, unlike Crochet, he's been pitching pretty well of late. So maybe fatigue hasn't caught up to him. 42 innings, still a sizable jump, all things considered. Do you think they continue to run out Michael King, or does he get slow played at all?
I think that he gets slow played. I do think they have the luxury here of a couple of depth pieces. One, there are reports that Yu Darvish is on his way back to the team after being on kind of a family leave, basically, from what I gather.
Hmm.
Um, Nobody really knows. He asked for privacy. He's certainly entitled to that. So they have Yu Darvish coming back. They do have Matt Waldron, who they sent down to save innings, which is weird because he's a knuckleballer, which, as far as I'm aware, takes like the least amount of effort to throw. They also have Johnny Brito down in the minors, who they could also um, call up. Those are just the guys that are on the 40-man roster. You could also go with Jackson Wolf. I know it didn't go well the last time he was up there. Um, so I do think that they have a little bit more leeway with Michael King, but it is also tougher for them because they're in the middle of a playoff hunt, right? They
Right.
are smack dab in the middle of the NL wild card. They still have an outside shot of chasing down the Dodgers for the NL West. Um, Certainly fighting tooth and nail with the Diamondbacks for one of the top two wild card spots in the NL. So I think King is okay. I think they may go to a 6-man thing, kind of like Pittsburgh, but I don't think. I think if he's pitching well, they're going to leave him in games with shots to win.
I'm inclined to believe in you there and agree there.
Because
Let's
they've
go
also
to
always been a team that's gone for it
right.
and then just deal with next year, next year.
That's very true. That is their MO. I
And they
will
got a bunch of expiring contracts at the end of this year. So I feel like they're going to go for it. And then if next year, then figure out next year, next year.
Yes, I would agree with that. Let's go to the AL Central. So two teams here, Royals and Tigers, both with a couple of lefties that are approaching innings limits. And Cole Reagans of the Kansas City Royals, who logged 96 last year and is up to 156 this year. So we're already at about a 70 inning jump. 60 inning jump with Cole Reagans. And then in Detroit, you got Tarek Skubal, who 80 last year due to injury, 117 the year before, was up to 149 in 2021, but he's now up to 160. So he's effectively doubled from last year if you don't count the couple of rehab appearances he made in the minors while working his way back with the arm issue. But Detroit's rattled off eight wins in their last 10 games. Now, they're still about 5.5 games out of the wild card, 8.5 for the division lead. Do the Tigers try to make a run for it? Do they cautiously make a run for it? And we're like, we're going to kind of try, but kind of not really try. What do you think happens with these lefties?
I think, well, let's start with Detroit. They kind of already played their hand at the Little League Classic. They basically came out and said that that would be the last start that Skubal made on regular rest the rest of the season at this point because they've got 2 years left with him. Um, they want to maximize his value. They want to maximize their potential window to compete in what is a generally wide open division. So I think Skubal gets slow played here. They've pretty well already announced it. Now the Royals are in a tough spot with Reagans because he's already well above. He's made. We've talked previously about with young guys, you don't really want to exceed like a jump of like 35 innings a year because it just tends to come back and bite them the following year. We're well past that with Reagans. However, there's not exactly a bunch of pitching depth in the Royals farm system, right? They've drafted a bunch of dudes in the last 3 years. None of them have worked out. They're in the middle of a playoff hunt for we just talked about wild card and division. So I think they let things roll with Reagans. I really do. Because he's also not looked like it's been a lot of effort for him. So if it's not a lot of effort and you know you're kind of playing easier squads down the stretch, that might help a little bit. So I think Reagans you're fine with. Skubal, they've basically already said he's not pitching on regular, 5-day start from here on out.
I want to wrap it up and get to waiver wire pickups and weekend streamers, but a couple of other names that we mentioned here in case you want to opine on any of them. I'll give you the floor here. But we got like Reynaldo Lopez, Spencer Schwellenbach, Tanner Houck, and basically every Boston starter. Pretty much most of them, and at least the main couple ones there. And Ronel Blanco in Houston. I think Houston's the interesting one because they haven't been able to keep Verlander all that healthy.
Correct.
Kyle Tucker has the worst bruise shin in the world and is
Yeah,
still
he's not
working his.
even doing baseball like he's not even running bases at this point.
Yeah, it's a pretty bad shin bruise. And then you got Ronel Blanco, who's blown past his innings limit and starting to show fatigue. So any of those guys, Lopez, Schwellenbach, Hauk, and or the rest of Boston staff and Ronel Blanco that are worth opining about from a fantasy perspective.
I think Lopez is pretty interesting because he's been far better than I think anybody thought he would be
Yeah.
when they announced that they were going to turn him back into a starter.
Mm-hmm.
And the Braves are still fighting for a wild card spot somehow, despite missing like everybody from what we thought we were going to have. And even dudes who were there not having their best years. So I think if in a couple of weeks or a week and a half or so the Braves start to tumble a little bit, they may start to slow their guys down. But if they're hanging in a wild card, I think they let them go and say, "Hey, we're going to have more depth next year, so let's use the innings on these guys now, and then we can give them a break next year when we have some of our key guys um, back." So that's how I'm thinking. And Boston, I don't know. It's impossible to tell what way Boston's going to go.
Ain't that the truth?
They I think they flirted with a 7-man rotation at some point this year. So I don't. They got Rich Hill coming up, right? Maybe he takes over some of the innings. 44-year-old Rich Hill.
Yep.
I
That's
don't
all you
know.
can say to that is, yep. We both nod and we both agree that neither of us know what to say about Rich Hill, and it is what it is. And we carry on
Jarren
from there.
Duran has almost as many doubles as Rich Hill has years alive on the planet.
Yep. And Trevor Rogers has led up just about as many earned runs with the Orioles as Rich Hill is as old. Anyway, I digress from that deal. And let's go to some waiver wire pickups and weekend streamers here. And let's rub it in Taylor Rogers and Trevor Rogers' face a little bit more. Mine's Connor Norby, dual position eligibility on ESPN. I believe he gets second base and outfield.
Yes.
And he's got a 9-game hit streak currently. At least he did at the time that we were recording this. 333, 385, 667. Barrel rate just under 15%. Only an 86 mile per hour exit velo. So he's not hitting it overly hard.
It's that humidity in Miami, man.
Yeah. But hey,
I don't know.
he's been good. He's been good. There's no way
He's getting
about
them
that.
where they ain't. So that's all you need to. Yeah, I'm gonna double up on Connor Norby with you, especially with the rash of second base injuries that we've seen over the last week or so, or questionable play from some second basemen.
Yeah.
Why not get a guy in there who, at this point, is going to get every day at bats for an offense that has Jake Berger and literally nothing else? So,
Yep. Couldn't agree more there. And let's head to the streamer option. No free square. Can't use Rhett Lowder. Can't use it. We all know we're picking him up anyway. So let's get rid of that. Can't use Rhett Lowder, although we both agree he'd be the streamer. But
yeah.
Matt, who are you looking at this weekend?
I am looking at a guy who you actually made an intriguing sound when I said his name earlier because you had picked a different guy, but then you're like,
Mm-hmm.
he's interesting. It's going to be Brant Herter from Detroit. They're facing Boston. Yes, that unguessable team of Boston. They're facing them. Brant Herter should pitch Sunday. Um, in his 22 and 2/3 innings over his 5 starts, he's got 22 strikeouts and 3 walks. In his last start, I'm pretty sure he retired 10 consecutive guys at one point. He's keeping the ball in the yard pretty well. Boston, by the way, Brant Herter is a lefty. This is where it gets interesting. Boston, in August, has been atrocious versus lefties. They're striking out 26.7% of the time, which is top third in baseball. Their batting average is 225 against lefties, which is bottom third against in baseball, and they're 87 WRC plus, also not ideal. That's bottom 5 in baseball versus lefties. So we're gonna go with Brant Herter for a streamer this weekend.
I like Mr. Herder myself, and looking at it through his 5 big league appearances, ground ball rate at 57.8%. And if you like some of those peripheral metrics, Sierra sub 3, XFIP sub 3. So
The
I
only
do,
reason why he's not the waiver wire ad is because I don't know if he's going to stick.
fair enough. But hey, that's why we break it up, waiver wire and streamer, so that we
But
can have a
you can
catch-all.
stream them and then just forget to drop them and see what happens.
Hey, you sure can. And if you want a pitcher on a bad team, you can take a look at my streamer and go with Joey Estes, who's going to get Texas on Sunday. Believe it or not, over the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitching, Texas is basically middle of the pack. Strikeout rate, they don't strike out a ton. I'll give them that, but they only have an 86 WRC plus. And when you look at Estes over his last 5 starts, 3.03 ERA, 0.8 WHIP, 23 to 4 strikeout to walk ratio across just under 30 innings. So not a big strikeout guy. Maybe Texas plays him up a little bit. I don't think Estes' ceiling is overly high in this matchup, but 5 or 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 3 to 5 strikeouts, totally
Potential for a
doable.
win.
Yeah, in there because Texas can't score runs either. So maybe he can get out of there and they're up 1-0 in the 5th. That's about what we are hoping for. But take a look at Connor Norby, Brant Herder, and Joey Estes if your fantasy baseball teams need some help as you're making a push to your league's championship. If you have some pitchers that you're concerned about their innings limits and you are a member of the family, get in the Discord, tag us, let us know. We'll give you some insights. Whether you like it or not, you'll get honest thoughts. That's all I can tell you. That's what you'll get in there with asking some of those questions. We'd like to talk to you in there. So once again, join the family today and get into Discord and talk to all of the brains at Fantasy Alarm. Make sure you like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Give me a follow over on X at Colby R. Conway. Give Matt Selz a follow at the Selz Man, and we will see you next week with the newest edition of Caught Stealing.